Okay, welcome everyone to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I am your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us once again, whether you're here live for the first or 100th time, or you're joining us on a replay on YouTube. Welcome, welcome. We're so happy to have you joining us. And I think we have a really interesting topic to share tonight. I can't wait to get into it. But before that, a little bit of our YouTube spiel. Thank you to all of those who have been sticking with us, supporting us in these weird, crazy times where, uh, the US government is sort of running amok into fascism, for lack of a subtler word. It really is the best word that fits right now. And we are doing our best to hold the fort and keep each other, keep each other afloat, to stay brave together, to do what we do and Hmm. Stay sane. To put our work to good use. And by work, I mean the work. The thing that we're all here to strive and grow within, mature within, to become full human adults. All of those things we've been talking about for years and years and years. Here's where the rubber meets the road. So, whether you have subscribed to our channel already, we definitely are welcoming you to do that. You can leave comments on our channel, our videos. You can like them. And of course, you can join us on Facebook still and find us on Blue Sky and Instagram and all of these places that we're all a little bit not so sure about these days. But, you know, status quo until things change, we'll be in those usual places. And you can always donate in support of our work to help us keep things going on PayPal, on Stripe, and on Coffee as well if you'd like to do recurring donations. So, without further ado, let's get into our pretty cool topic for this evening.
What is our topic for this evening?
We are going to be talking about a pretty big secret of Ibn Arabi's, which has been hidden in plain sight and which took a little bit of piecing together to discover, but as we'll see, there is a very distinct common thread running through much of his work that we thought would be useful to bring attention to and to see if it can help us deepen into the work that we're all doing here. Yeah. What do you think, Mushtaq?
I think that that's what we're doing. Yeah.
It's what we're striving to do.
Yeah. And we should probably start with a story. So, a bunch of dervishes went to China and they were hosted by the emperor. And there was some discussion about who had the coolest stuff when it came to spirituality. And so the emperor proposed a contest. And he had his Taoist sages and these dervishes, and he said, "This is what you're going to do. I'm going to give you each this room. And within this room, you are going to express your thought and your path in artistic form." And so they go in there, and all the Taoist sages do this amazing mural along the wall, something that is just absolutely divine in its beauty. Now, the dervishes, which were in the room across from them, they started working on their wall and they didn't paint anything. They started polishing the wall. After a month, the emperor came down and said, "All right, show me what you got." And the Taoists pulled back the wall that was blocking what they were doing. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. And then the dervishes were invited to do the same, and they pulled back their wall. And the polish was so fine that it perfectly reflected the image that the Taoists had made completely. And the emperor looked at that and he understood the message and he deemed the dervishes the winners of that particular contest. People have heard this story. Most people don't quite get it. So, who thinks they understand why the emperor understood that the dervishes had won the contest? What statement was made by a reflective wall? Seems a little bit like they were plagiarizing or cribbing, doesn't it?
I'm going to speculate that what's good about what the dervishes did is that they enhanced what was there as opposed to creating something new.
It's beginning to sneak up on the answer.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to get much more than sneaking up.
But that's more than most people get, so good on you for that answer. Yes, Nancy.
Um, okay, I think it was about being able to perceive accurately.
Yeah, that could be. Anybody else? This is a trick question, so don't worry if you don't get it.
Um, there, polishing seems like an act of taking away rather than adding, kind of like what Ian was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a trust that the Taoists were going to do something real beautiful.
Thank you, Osama. So RM and then M. RM says, uh, beyond my comprehension, LOL. Mirroring?
It was mirroring.
Yes. M, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have also said the acceptance of the already beauty that's surrounding us and the mirroring of it. The humbleness, the egoless kind of, in some respect, being a reflector for all the beauty that's already around us.
You were all so close. So close. So, this is where understanding Ibn Arabi comes in. There is this concept that we knock around a lot, the insan al-kamil, the completed human. What is the completed human? The completed human reflects the divine attributes perfectly. The completed human has polished their mirror, so when the divine theophany reveals itself, it is reflected back perfectly. So when the emperor saw this, the emperor being a smart guy, he realized that while the Taoist had created an image of divine perfection, the dervishes had shown them the secret of the perfection of humankind, which is to mirror that divine perfection. That's the secret to this story that I hate to say it, not that many people get when they hear it. And I have to admit that it took me years to figure it out myself. Like, okay, why was the mirroring better than the original? And the answer, it wasn't better than the original. It's like, why is the human better than God? They're not. But if the human is complete, they reflect the divine attributes, which is the image, as perfectly as is possible. That makes sense? So, how do we do that? That's always the question. We give a lot of lip service in Sufism to polishing the mirror, but we actually have to do the hard work of scrubbing at the wall in order to do that. And it's interesting. When Noor and I were at the Taj Mahal, we walked by walls of marble that were so finely polished we could see our reflections in them. That was one of the things that reminded me of this story. Because it can be done if you are a good enough craftsman or craftswoman, craftshuman. So, what does Ibn Arabi tell us about this? There's a term in Arabic, tajili, ta, yeah,
Tajalli.
tajali. Thank you. And we translate that as theophany. Theophany is the shout of the divine into the universe. I always think of it in terms of sound, but others think of it in terms of image, and I don't think that that matters. So that's one of Ibn Arabi's understandings that take us to the secret. Theophany is here we have creation. Creation is not created from anything other than the divine attributes. The real, al-haq, as Ibn Arabi likes to call him, takes its attributes and externalizes them, or seemingly externalizes them, so that they can be reflected back. And they are reflected back in terms of the universe. From Arabi's point of view, everything that you encounter in this world is an echo of the divine reality. The rock on the ground, the lizard sitting underneath the rock, the fly flying over, the person watching all of this. They are all reflections of the one reality in its infinite attributes. And that's just the beginning. By the way, for those of you who uh, want to read about this in the original, most of this I've pulled from the Meccan Revelation, some of it from the Futuhat, the bezels of wisdom. So you can dig into those books as you can find them. Now, Arabi rejects the idea of a single absolute beginning of a creation from nothing. Instead, he views this cyclical thing, the idea of the pre-eternal and continuous movement of being, where the divine essence is continually manifesting in its infinite forms. This idea reflects the dynamism of existence rather than a static, completed creation. And it gets weird to think about it. But if you think of the divine and nothing, you've missed the point already. There is not the divine and nothing. Nothing that would be dualistic. There's only the divine and the divine. And the nothing is one of those infinite attributes. Perhaps the first attribute so that there is space for everything else. Am I making sense to you guys, or am I just blathering away here?
No, I think that's a fascinating way of expressing it.
Phew. That's a relief.
All right, so I saw some of you nodding yes. Is anyone struggling so far?
I'm struggling.
Yeah. Stock's riding the struggle bus. All right. Okay.
As a further commentary on that, I mean, I always relate this kind of thing to what physicists at least think they know about the universe. And the idea that there's nothing in a big bang. I mean, while that's sort of mostly accepted wisdom, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And there are competing theories that I've been seeing vague headlines about recently.
Yeah, the idea that there was no universe before the Big Bang, that the bang itself or the theophany itself created the space of the universe to have a universe in. But as many physicists have pointed out to me, there's not a whole lot we can say about what was going on before the bang, whether it's a big or a small. It's mind-boggling. Now, here is one of the key things that you are going to need for understanding Arabi's secret. The idea of instantaneous renewal. He emphasizes the idea that creation is renewed in every breath. This is essential for you to wrap your mind around if you want to understand Arabi's secret. And this is the key to the work. Creation is renewed in every breath. Right now is the creation that has been renewed. What you remember passed away. What you think is going to happen in the future doesn't exist. Only the now is what we can experience. And with each breath, the now renews itself. This is slightly metaphoric, but also completely true. So bear this in mind, that this idea of instantaneous renewal and that there is no permanence in the forms of creation, only the underlying divine being that manifests through them. So not only is creation renewed in every breath, but the divine manifestation is renewed in every breath. And I use the term divine for lack of a better term. This is al-haq. This is the real, that which is actually real as opposed to the forms that are reflected back to it.
The most foundational of the most foundational.
Yeah, I find that to be an interesting inversion of the usual way of looking at things. We normally think of the universe as being the thing that's permanent and us ourselves as being impermanent. But from that perspective, you can logically say that even if the outside world appears to be operating according to consistent laws, there is a strong sense in which, from our individual perspective, it's only existing as long as we breathe.
In a very real sense, yes. Yeah, that kind of it makes you think. So, within that, we have the idea of what we call the divine breath, or the breath of the merciful, Ruh al-Rahman. Um, and this is the core of the concept of recurrent uh, creation. Rahman is translated as merciful or compassionate. And this is the why of it, that there is the continuous renewal is an absolute form of compassion. And to understand this, you have to understand the saying, I was a hidden treasure and I loved to be known, so I created the universe that I might be known. I still don't understand it myself. I'm just getting inklings of it to this very day. A
Osama.
hand. Osama, talk to us.
Yeah. This is it's so beautiful because it opens up like the whole idea of Nafas ar-Rahman, the merciful breath, and the idea of continuous creation that's constantly happening. It creates this endless possibility at every moment. And the exercise of free will within that possibility or within that pool of possibilities to choose from. And it creates the space that things can also move in a non-linear way. That things don't necessarily need to look like one, two, three, four, five, like that. And it can move in ways that are not logical, or meaning it doesn't have to satisfy the reason um, in order for it to happen. And it can. Like, it just opens a pool of possibilities. It opens up um, it widens the path. Um, this idea of this constant creation, even within asking ourselves, like, okay, if I believe that to be true, what does this next breath What is this next creation? How do I want that emanation, that tajalli, that manifestation to look like? How do I desire it to look like? In what direction? So there is, for me, it creates a interesting playground for experimentation.
Yes. So, Sufis talk about fana and baqa, which is translated as annihilation and subsistence. And we usually think of that as annihilation of the nafs, subsistence in God. Arabi suggests that because of the continuous nature of creation, that every moment experiences annihilation and every moment experiences subsistence. This moment that you are experiencing now is baqa. It is the subsistence of the divine reality. And as we transition to the next moment, what we had experienced is gone. It's annihilated. It is no longer real. We cannot touch it. We cannot bring it back. And we have this new subsistence. This is, again, difficult to wrap your brain around, but it's important to understand Arabi's secret. Thoughts? I see M has come back.
I think this idea of everything being created anew in every moment, I think the quantum physicists are kind of tapping into this now. It's actually from memory, in Surah Rahman that Allah says, like Allah is in creation in every moment, in every day. Kulli yawmin shay'in, or something like that, close to that. And I think that the mind can't, because we're so used to seeing things in a somewhat consistency. You know, I know that I'm going to walk out and see my jacaranda tree. It's there. It's been there ever since I've been here. So this consistency deludes us, even though in every moment, everything is constantly being renewed. We forget that and we get caught up, and hence we don't like change, but everything is changing all the time. And so it's just the mind getting in the way of what the heart and the ruh, the soul, is already from and is returning back to. So the returning and coming and going is happening so fast, so consistently happening. The vibration is so splendidly, majestically high, that in the sleep state, we fall ignorant to it.
Yeah, and we could even say that if you really understand what's going on, that jacaranda tree is not the one that was there yesterday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember the day I planted it. It was a tiny little thing. Now it's covering everywhere. And it's
Yep.
just, yet how the mind gets deluded and thinks that everything is static. It's not, clearly not. And that's where we then fall into that stagnation of the ego that wants permanence here, which you can never have. But it needs to have that, because if we didn't have that in our makeup, if everything is already complete, how would it know itself without having a tejelli, a place in which to tejelli, to reflect on. So I think this sense of separation is a default factory setting in our being in the first place.
Yeah.
And our job is, like you said, just to be in the business of polishing it.
Yeah, which gets us to how do we polish it?
Yes. Let's James, did you have a thought you
Yeah,
wanted?
let's get James in here first.
It's a bit peripheral. It just this keeps coming back to me, and years and years and years ago, I can't remember who it was. I was reading some Western philosopher's argument for the existence of God. And I don't know how fail-safe an argument it was, but it was an interesting image. Read something like, well, we don't really know if creation did or didn't happen at some point in time, but all phenomena are contingent. There must be something holding them in existence. God is the perpetual ex-annihilator. Regardless of whether or not God created anything or didn't, or if the universe or whatever, it was subject to perpetual ex-annihilation.
That's an
Like,
interesting thought.
um, I think it was in some little booklet called How to Think About God. And some guy called Adler, maybe. But yeah, he sort of said instead of going on arguments for creation, go on arguments for what we can observe now, the contingency of all phenomena. And he was saying the necessity of something to hold them, to perpetually keep them from annihilation. So God ex-annihilates the world second by second.
Interesting thought.
Mm,
But
thank you, James.
I can't remember the guy, sorry.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
if you think of it, you can
Yeah,
share.
let us know.
Kevin, did you have a thought or a question?
Well, I would just want to say that in experiences I've had in altered states of consciousness, usually through deep meditation of some kind, I have experienced this really deep intuition about the progression of time or the experience of the progression of time. Whereas in the moment, it felt like there was absolutely no reason that things should persist. It just felt like there was nothing to really feel held within the physical existence. It felt very insubstantial somehow, but something kept renewing it. So this language of renewal keeps coming up, and it's very evocative of those experiences I've had where I'm just so present that, they say that it takes several microseconds between the time something happens and our brain actually registers it. It's as if that filter just completely got cut out and I was able to see things more clearly and present, but also in this strange way that there was this sense of persistence despite it feeling like it should not necessarily be so. I will also say that there is a Pueblo man my uncle works with who says something very similar, that we're constantly flickering in and out of existence. And it feels like it's related to what Ibn Arabi is
Yeah.
speaking
Do you
to
know what
here.
Pueblo he's from?
Picaris?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He also happens to have been initiated in a Sufi order, interestingly enough.
Interestingly. Yeah, that's happened a few times. There's yeah, the part of the Rio Grande that those pueblos come from was at one point a hotbed of Sufism.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, Samuel L. Lewis, who was the guy who founded the Sufi dances, is buried out there.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The world is small.
The world is small.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, Mushtaq. So you were talking about how do we do this polishing of the mirror?
Well, we have a tool, according to Ibn Arabi. He calls it khayal, and it's usually translated as creative imagination, sometimes active imagination. It's the creative force uh, behind the consistent renewal of creation. And in a human, the active imagination is a reflection of the divine power. The human heart serves as an organ for the divine theophany through this particular kind of imagination. Now, this imagination is not fantasy. And usually when we say imagination, we equate it with fantasy, but it's not that. It is the means by which the divine brings forth new forms in the world. That gets us to a term Arabi used, khalik jadid, new creation. And that's his term for the continuous renewal of existence. That concept is, we're going to come back to it over and over again this evening. Continuous renewal of existence in every moment. There's a Quranic verse, yet they are uncertain about a new creation, which is in Surah 50, ayat 15. Uh, and we'll save interpreting that for later. So let's look at the core principles real quick. One of them is, and this goes to the reflection that we were talking about. We are going to use a term that Ibn Arabi never used, but is indicative, which is watat al-wajud, the unity of being. He used watat al-haq, the unity of the real, the unity of the true. And that is an understanding that there is no true existence outside of the one existence. There is no individual existence, which is something that can upset people. So you have to be careful who you say that to. But from the point of view of uh, absolute monotheism, which is other than Allah does not exist, other than the divine reality does not exist. If something existed outside of the real, it would be a partner to the real. There would be two, not one. Does that make sense? I mean, you don't have to buy into this, but to follow Arabi's thoughts, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
M,
Yeah.
do you have something you might like to share?
Yeah, Arabi uses the word La ilaha illallah to expand on this theme, that is the source of where this idea comes from, that there is no God. You start with the denying La, there is no God, La ilah, and then you say there is only God, Illah Allah, La ilaha illah Allah. So this no God, only God idea, which is the pillar of Islam, that's where all of this is stemming from. And one of the ways, hence he says, I can't remember which book it's in, but there's this polishing about how to polish ourselves to come into this reality is by having and being busy with this zikr, La ilaha illallah. That in itself is also a tool to keep us in this remembrance, to be able to become the tejalli of all the divine names, because there is no other, there is only Allah, only that.
Yeah, exactly right. And that gets us to the tajalli, the theophany. We have to bear that in mind, that the theophany is real. It's part of the real. It's the part of the real that has given us this universe to play in. And the completed human, the one that can reflect this back to the universe. And so from here we look at the levels of existence, the five divine presences.
You're going to need to explain what they are.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how to explain this in English. So the first presence is essence. Essence is when everything inside of you shuts up and there is that which is perceiving the universe directly without all of the stuff. That's you're getting towards presence. So the essence is the theophany of the essence. The next is the angelic world. Um, the one after that is the world of souls. And then we get to the one that is useful to us right now. They call it Alam al-Mithal, the world of idea images, or the world of imagination. Osama, how would you translate that most accurately?
عالم الأمثال, is
Yeah,
that what it said? The world of what's the word? I don't know how to pronounce that word in English.
yeah, it's a bitch, ain't it?
Simulate something with an S.
You want to type it out and then maybe I
Um,
can read it.
let me see. Um,
Relations.
Similitude?
so yes, that one. Yep. Yeah, the world of similitude. Yeah. Um, or
And to understand that, we have a document that was first written down in Arabic that starts out, that which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below.
Yeah. Did you
yeah.
have another word you wanted to use, Osama? I heard you
Um,
say or.
yeah, or because it's also used as symbols, the world of symbols.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yep.
I think the
That,
closest thing that resembles alemi misal is the realm of dreams. So you've got a mixture of the real and the seen and the unseen world. And it's an in-between of those two is alemi misal.
Well,
So
not to be confused with عالم الخيال, which is the world of imagination as well.
imagination, that's separate.
Right.
yeah. The world of similitudes and the world of symbols is pretty accurate to what it is. Symbols in the sense of semiotics, in the sense of meaningful representations of a truth. And it is here that is easiest for us to work. The fifth level is the sensible world, that which we are experiencing right now as we're talking to each other. Beyond that, we get into all sorts of wild stuff. Seven heavens and seven earths, and the throne and the primordial cloud and all of that. But we don't need to talk about that right now. So, the divine names and attributes are a way to talk about the theophany, because we understand the theophany through creating symbols, through experiencing it in the world of similitudes. I know I'm saying that wrong, and I will probably never be able to say it right, but I don't care. I'll get Google to say it for me if I really need to hear it. So, above that level, which is the closest level to this, in the idea of the Gurdjieff's levels of creation, rays of creation, this would be the six laws. This is where all of the archetypes are created. The divine symbols are given to us that will then operate on the sensible world. So we have that. We have the khayal, which is the creative imagination, which connects us to that. We have the idea of recurrent creation, and what we haven't talked about is love and the heart. In Arabi's thinking, love is the driving force of creation. Creation exists because the divine reality loves the idea of it. And that is the love of recognition. Think about it for a moment. If you are all that exists, how can you be recognized? How can you be recognized if you are all that exists?
And you certainly can't love or be loved.
Exactly. It's reminded my old buddy Rashad, who was this Mevlevi sheikh I used to pal around with back in the day. He said to me, "Do you know why so many men have trouble finding a partner?" And I said, "I do not, oh wise sheikh, but I would like to." And he said, "It is because women need to be seen, and men are too stupid to see them." And at that moment, I was enlightened. It was like the sky opened up, doves came down, and it all made sense to me. And this is the same thing. We, as creation, love to be seen. And that's a reflection of the Creator's love to be seen. And it can't happen without this apparent polarity. But the polarity is only apparent. Does that make sense? So,
So, so, so
yeah,
alemi misal is what keeps these two polarities succinct in order for this reflection to continuously be happening.
right in one, exactly correct. And when we operate in that realm, we can perceive that.
Could you repeat that because I didn't quite catch it all?
Yeah, say it twice, please.
What did I say?
So I mean, I can sort of speak.
Paraphrase it for us, Noor.
Yeah, so M was offering that it's the operating in the realm of the alam al-mital that makes it possible for us to hold space for that polarity in order to have that experience of mirroring the other and experiencing that mutual love. Because as we've said, it's this is it's almost a symbolic separation. It's a symbolic separation rather than a real one. And it allows us to access more than we might otherwise.
Yes, and hence why we need to be awake to recognize the real and the symbol.
That's a good point too, right? Because the truth is ultimately it's important that we hold both in order to see the fullness of this, to experience the fullness of reality as it is, and to be attuned to the fact that this illusory duality, we can experience it as real, just to make this fullness possible. Yes.
So, this gets us to a very important and very misunderstood concept. We're almost to where we can put this all together. So, I'm very excited. We have the heart as the seat of spiritual perception, the locus of the divine presence. It's the organ of creative imagination. And the idea is that the heart is like the symbol of the center of the world. Yeah, Arabi talks about it as the Kaaba, the little square house in the middle of Mecca, which is the center of the world, so they say. Thing about it, living on a sphere is wherever you are is the center.
Unless you literally want to go hang out in molten, you know.
Yeah. Well, the center of the surface.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like re-solidified metal in the center of the planet, but anyway, we
Yeah.
digress.
Something weird that we really don't want to experience.
Yeah. So the Kaaba as a metaphor for this centrality. Yeah.
Yeah, the similitude of the Kaaba is the heart.
Yes. Going through my notes here. I wrote 20 pages of notes for this talk.
He did a lot of really interesting work this week.
I think when it comes to Ibn Arabi, it's okay to maybe one page a talk a little. I think that'll one line, one word at a time.
Yeah, it's interesting because all of these notes have to do with literally one moment's experience. And you got to use all of those words even to begin to encapsulate it. And we aren't even going to touch on all of my notes.
More for other times.
Yeah. So within Arabi's work, there is the concept of the intelligences. When I use this word, this is a translation of an idea of a kind of angelic being, of which there are 10 of them. And the 10th intelligence, which is what we have mentioned, is the one that's important to us. The 10th intelligence is represented by the angel Gabriel, who is the messenger to the prophets. Yeah, when you hear God said this to this prophet, it wasn't actually God, because if God spoke to you, it would melt your ears. If you don't understand this, watch the movie Dogma. It all becomes very clear there. But we cannot directly experience the divine voice because it would annihilate us. So the divine reality uses a step-down transformer. And the one that interfaces with humanity is Gabriel. And he's considered the lowest, strangely enough. And his manifestation is triadic because he is connected with active intellect and the Holy Spirit, the Ruh al-Quds. Now, this is not the Christian concept of the Holy Ghost. There are no ghosts involved in this. There is no direct being. There is no discrete manifestation of being that is a Holy Spirit. It literally the breath of God, the sacred breath. It is a quality of energy, not a person that you hang out with. Now, Gabriel and Al-Khidr are intimately connected. I don't know if we'll have time to get into how that works tonight, but just keep that in the back of your head. So, the 10th intelligence is that which allows for an interaction between the divine and us. Does that make sense?
Sort of. It's a little different spin than what I thought when I was reading the what was in the email about the 10th intelligence.
I may have been distracting people with that a little bit.
Well, there I was thinking that it sounded like Gurdjieff's concept of the higher intellectual center, but
It
you're
is.
giving,
You are not wrong.
but I think what you're talking about here is a different spin on what that meant to me.
Yes. And that's what makes it useful, because we tend to think of the higher intellectual center as this thing that we can maybe get access to that lives in our head somewhere. And it's not. The higher intellectual center lives in the realm of creative imagination. It is the realm of creative imagination. It is the direct connection to that. It is the connection to the world of symbols and similitudes. Yes, I will never say that word right in the entirety of my life. If I said it right, the world might end.
It sounded fine to me.
Sounded good to me too, but since the world is constantly ending and restarting, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Great. So we have a question from Kevin about the 10th intelligence.
Yes.
Kevin asks, would dreams be considered part of this 10th intelligence?
A very specific kind of dream. For the dream to be part of the 10th intelligence, it must be lucid. And it must carry a meaning that can be brought forth into this world.
So not just some Salvador Dali weirdness where you're just watching things happen.
Yeah. The metaphor for this is the night journey. The night journey is where the prophet is taken up to the heavens and goes through the seven heavens. And this is a long experience in which he is completely conscious and awake. But they say that it took place in the time that it would take for a leaf to fall from the tree and hit the ground. So in the time of this world, very short experience. And the time of the imaginal world, a very long experience. And he had to be moving through the imaginal world in order to make any kind of sense of this journey that he could communicate to the people. I'm sure there was a part of the journey that there are no words for, but I think that's represented by when he had to leave Gabriel behind and go on without him. But we speculate at this point. Now, here's where it gets a little radical. Ibn Arabi rejected, at least in part, the idea of collective authority. This will get you in trouble with both Sunni and Shia, because both believe in a kind of collective authority. And Arabi says, no. What matters is direct experience yourself, not what somebody else tells you, not what all the other people in the world tell you, not what um, all of the members of the community get together and they agree that this is true. Doesn't mean a thing. Doesn't mean a damn thing. The great muckety muck ayatollahs get together and they tell you this is true. Also doesn't mean a damn thing. The only thing that means anything, not consensus, not pronouncements of dogma from on high by people who are supposedly infallible. The only thing that means anything is to be clean enough in yourself that you can receive individual guidance. This is incredibly dangerous because if you have not polished your mirror, the guidance you get will not be from the divine in any real sense. And God, we've seen this over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, the few times I've experienced this in people, the real thing, they never claim to have the truth. They never claim to know the real. It's something to think about. So, the idea of a personal guidance is essential to this. So, does this make sense so far?
Yeah, I was just going to say I couldn't agree more.
Good.
And it should be a little, or it might be, I don't know if it should be, but it might be a little scary because it means that you have the responsibility for polishing your mirror and really feeling into whether it's just what you want to hear or whether it's really this this connection that you're experiencing. James.
Well, it's the very fact that you can talk about polishing the mirror means it's not some totally subjective or solipsistic thing. You can have a community of practitioners who can acknowledge there is a means and a standard for polishing the mirror. It's not there's feedback. It's whether you're polishing the mirror or just smudging it with something new.
Mm.
So it's not
Yeah,
some
you're
not
absolutely correct. And
yeah.
that is part of this that we haven't talked about and probably won't tonight. The idea of the community of people who are doing this, not a collective authority, but a community.
Hmm.
It definitely I think it shows some guidance. Your revelations may be totally personal for you, but the means of getting there, it has its standards.
Yeah.
Um,
I
hmm.
think what I'm going to have to do with this is clean up my notes a little bit more, see if I can cut them down a little bit at the same time. And when I do, I will publish them to the forum for people who are members there. And if you're not a member of the forum, it makes it hard for you to get the notes, but you can email us. And if you ask nicely, we could maybe send them to you. And we
Hmm.
promise not to put you on our mailing list unless you're already on it. Osama, yes.
Yeah. And for Ibn Arabi, also this idea of collective authority, which is even more I don't know how to, you know, how like you said, the groups kind of receive it. There's this treatise that I'm reading of Ibn Arabi, which is titled The Treatise of That Which Cannot Be Relied Upon. And it's pretty much just one-liners um, of Ibn Arabi's things that he believes cannot be relied upon. And one line in there talks about this direct experience, as you described, Mushtaq, where it says in Arabic, it says, خلة لا تنتج نبوة لا تعول عليها, meaning divine intimacy that does not produce prophecy is not relied upon. So he even went to having that divine intimacy to produce prophecy, whatever that means. Um, or whatever he meant by that. But like even to that extent, which in the general consensus of prophethood being done, kind of, he goes on to say divine intimacy, if not producing prophecy, even individually on an individual level. Um, so there goes that.
Yeah, it gets weird. Yeah, the
I
way I
think
understand what he means is that the idea that 100 idiots are smarter than one idiot is just probably not true. And one idiot is probably not smarter than 100 idiots because
mm,
All right, so has been looking to talk to us for a little while, and then we have some stuff in the chat I want to bring
yeah,
into the conversation. Thank you, Osama.
I think the meaning, one of the meanings of if producing that prophecy is coming into one's own reality. When we're in our reality, when we're in our truth, we're in the position of that, seeing divine guidance and being able to be guided by our divine, our internal divine. If the Kaaba is the qalb, the heart, not the physical heart, but the heart center, then there is, and that is the seat of God. So within us, we are in the Jabrail within us, our higher intelligence is constantly active. And we can look back in the historical way of how the Quran came in 23 years. That in itself is also showing that it's not a one-off thing. It's a continuum, a continual revelation happening within us. If we're awake to it, we're guided by it. Like being operating from your frontal cortex instead of your amygdala, where you're in constant fear and setback. You're in the new, in the learning, in the openness. And so as it is above, so it is below, is that all of what is above is happening within. We just need to tune into it, attune to it. And we have to transcend. I don't think that there is no collective authority. Of course there is. But it's suitable for the child. It's not suitable for the adult. We have to transcend the collective authority into the authorship and the authority of within, the divine within. And we take a risk there because, like you said, 1 million people, the whole of a collective community of a religion can stand against you, and you can still say, "An el haq, I am the truth." And you take that risk because, yeah, your head could be beheaded. But does that make it not truth? Right? So we have to transcend the childlike state to come into the higher truth of ourselves, into our adult selves, to be able to then see it already happening consistently, constantly within us. And then I guess it's all about balancing ourselves, which is another word for mustaqim, where we balance ourselves between the similitude world and the real world, having one foot in the earth and one foot up in the air, meaning the heavenly and the earthly in complete balance. And by being able to do that, we become the complete human being that then can reflect everything back, and hence continue being active in the feedback loop of the whole divine system we called life. I don't know. Sorry. Just went on to a rant there.
and no, it works for me. It's a nice synopsis.
Thank you, Em. Good stuff.
So let's get through the comments here, and then I can give the last little bit, the key
Yeah.
to this.
Okay, so a couple one-off questions. Someone asked, is this the same as pantheism?
No,
Because it's not just about what actually exists, but what exists in potential, right? Like,
yeah, there are all these terms, pantheism, where God is in everything, but it's there's a separation there, panentheism, all of that. This is that which has no name.
Um, okay. Nancy asked, if everything is emanations of the divine, how is illusion possible? Or have I missed something?
Yeah, there is no illusion. There is just uh, clearer and less clear understanding of what is being emanated. That's one way of saying it. Illusion implies duality. When the non-dual people jump up and say, there is only, there is, everything is non-dual, and then they talk about reality and illusion, they've gone back into duality. I reject this. Sometimes Noor might reject it too, but only to keep me happy. Um, other than God does not exist. There is no illusion in reality. There can be misunderstanding, but even that is part of the divine game. So the question is, how does this understanding help me polish my mirror? And if it doesn't, it's probably not worth it if you are on the path of the work.
Okay. Kevin says, maybe there's conscious and less conscious as opposed to reality versus illusion.
There is conscious and not conscious. Less conscious is to me is like being a little bit pregnant.
So that's like you're either awake or you're asleep.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I think these are much
Question though.
better ways to put it than I did. I think I was more getting to this idea of what we've called the fantasy work.
Yeah.
Be careful about that specifically. And we've done whole talks on that, so I won't get into it here. But if I talk about illusion, I'm talking about the fantasy work, not necessarily that there are things that are real and things that are not real, and those things are dualistically separate.
Yeah. In a universe of infinite experience, there is experience that take you into being a full human being and being able to experience the divine theophany. And there is experience that take you away from that. And even the stuff that takes you away from that may be taking you to it by a very circuitous route. Don't know. Hence, never judge anybody for what you think is stupid.
Try not to. So, Mushtaq, do you have any thoughts you'd like to
Yes,
wrap up with?
we are now at the point where we can talk about the secret.
Oh, yes, the most
Yes,
important
the most important thing.
kernel of this whole thing.
Everything else has just been built up to this moment. So I want you all to do this. Sit up straight if you can. Get comfortable if you can't. Put your awareness on your breath. Don't do anything with your breath. Just have some attention there. And put your attention also on this present moment. Be aware of your breath and be aware of the present moment. Now notice every usually 3 breaths, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more. What was the present moment becomes the past, and you have a new present moment. Notice when now becomes memory. Then notice when now becomes memory. This helps orient you to the present, because when it becomes memory, it is no longer now. Now, let yourself experience for a moment the idea that you are connected with this now in a way that connects you to the possibility of the world of symbols, and that you can experience that, but only now. If I ask you to experience a religious symbol, a crescent, a cross, whatever, by the time you do it, it's in the past. So that's not the kind of symbol we're talking about. So to experience this, you have to just reflect it in the now. You have to be the polished mirror that sees the divine beauty. As you do this, realize that nobody can do it for you. Nobody can give you this experience. You are giving it to yourself. I'm not giving it to you. You are finding it just because I'm kind of pointing a finger at it. It was there all along. And no one can tell you what it is or how it should be. It is exactly as it is. And this is Ibn Arabi's secret, that you can touch into this state anytime you want, in every moment. And the longer you can hold it, the more truth you can experience. And at some point, you might get an Ana al-Haq going on, I am the truth, and realize that the I is just nothing more than a speck on your mirror. Let the I disappear and you get truth is truth. And this is Ibn Arabi's secret. And so you can bring yourself back into this moment, let yourself slip out of the present into the past and the future, where we're talking. And there you have it. That's the whole secret. Pretty simple, no? So, any good thoughts or bad thoughts?
Yeah, I found the first part of the exercise, distinguishing between the present, slipping into the past, to be very interesting.
Isn't it though?
Yeah. I, on the other hand, I couldn't relate to the idea of connecting to the semiotic world, the symbol world.
It's okay.
I don't know whether that's related to the same kind of thing as my aphantasia, but
No, it's just don't
or
judge yourself for it. It's if you can hold just the letting, observing when the present becomes the past, if you can hold that. And when I first discovered this, which was a little while ago, I was utterly fascinated by it. I would sit for hours just watching the present become past and a new present emerging. And sometimes that's all you need to do for a while. The rest of it will come or it won't, and it won't matter.
yeah, I find it very interesting that you say you only discovered this recently.
Well, No, it was 25 years ago, but that's
Oh,
recently to a redwood tree. And I was actually sitting under a redwood tree when I discovered it for myself. And so, you know, time is time. What can you do? That's
redwood,
all images in the past.
redwood trees always remind me of Eskimo Blue Day,
Okay.
the Jefferson airplane.
Yeah.
Mm.
Doesn't mean shit to a tree.
So that's it. That's the secret. All of that build up to get to that few minutes.
James asks, when you feel that all the mundane phenomena you continue to see are also symbols of something divine, is that akin to this secret?
Yes, there are no mundane. We create the mundane because if we understood the absolute wonder of the divine theophany, it would overwhelm us. Therefore, we have dirty socks.
Well, that's what I've talked about with you before, and what I got a milder version of just then is I'm looking at everything. It's still conventional in appearance, but there's the slightest sense of it all forebodes something much larger than itself.
Yes.
And I've had that, as I've told you, quite overwhelmingly, but many, many years ago in a park where it was just dazzlingly mysterious. But it was all still conventional appearances, no special effects.
Yeah. The world, when you lift up its skirts and look underneath, the world is weird.
Any other reflections or questions people might like to share?
I'm not sure how this interacts with, I don't know, ordinary life where you do seem to need some sense of past and future.
Oh, yeah. Didn't say you don't need it or that it isn't useful. If you stay in the moment of the now, some things don't get done, like your socks don't get washed.
One of the things I was thinking about earlier is, I mean, there's a structure to what you've been doing recently, and even sort of going back before you started this recent series of talks, um, which are all obviously in the past now, but they're leading towards some kind of a goal. And even just within the context of what we're talking about, I mean, there it has to be some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some kind of permanence in,
I think the word you really want is intentionality.
sure, yeah. But it's like there's, no, I think that for what I was trying to say, permanence is probably the right word, because without our understanding of what's being talked about, and you're right, intentionality in terms of where it's going, um, there would be no point in having these talks at all. That was a question.
Okay. Trying to think if I have an answer to your question. How do you know something? Like if I said to you, make me this thing, how would you know to make it?
Well, it would depend what the thing was.
Anything that you know how to make.
I can make an omelette
Okay, so how do you know how to make an omelet?
because I've learned it.
How did you learn it? What is the learning that you went through? How do you do that learning now?
Well, initially from let's say a recipe. So the relating that back to the school, shall we say, um, there is a body of knowledge about how to do things, and then with the omelette, practicing making it.
Okay, but now, at this very moment, if I said to you, Ian, make an omelet, how would you do it?
Crack eggs.
How do you know to do that?
Memory.
Yes, you store the truths in memory. Now, what if I said to you, do this thing that you've never done? How would you go about doing it? I say, carve me a lamp out of stone.
Well, I'd have to learn about stone cutting techniques. I'd have to get tools and then practice
How do you know to do those things?
because those.
You're experiencing right now the world of creative imagination. As you figure out how to do this, you have to tap into that world.
Okay.
When you make an omelet, you have to tap into that world because that information is stored as memory. If you do something new, now I picked carve a lamp out of stone because I actually did that once. Never carved stone. But I had worked with other things. And so I looked at that and I said to myself, serpentine is soft enough to carve with hand tools. And I have seen pictures of oil lamps from Egypt and Jerusalem. I have a sense of the form. So I took these things and I created a new thing from experiences that weren't that thing. That's also working in the realm of creative imagination.
With representations and things
Yes,
like
in symbols.
that.
I had a symbol of an oil lamp, and then I took this piece of rock and I shaped it until it matched the symbol.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Well, interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And you knew, Ian, that tools would be involved because you were doing some processing around, okay, how do I make this symbol tangible?
Yeah, it's interesting because I spent a lot of time back in the 80s and certainly 90s studying a lot of semiotics. I'd never quite had that perspective of translating the symbol into something from a creative perspective, which is it's one of those things that obviousness in hindsight. It's like there's all sorts of things that are obvious in hindsight, but you don't discover them without some kind of a trigger that gets you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it becomes a matter of, are you going to do this consciously or unconsciously? People do this unconsciously all the time.
So,
And
Yeah, it's interesting coming across the term creative imagination for what is apparently a very mundane thing like making an omelet.
mhm.
yeah, well, I've had some omelets that were anything but mundane, man. Somebody had to go away. That's
Yeah, I
because,
think it was rat. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry because I would think that Rat would have a few things to say about this, but we will hopefully catch them on the flip flop.
Yeah. So, relevant to this, I saw that had herself unmuted briefly, but Leah asks, so is everything a symbol?
Uh,
And Kevin says, seems to be more like we turn everything into symbols.
yeah, or there are symbols that can represent everything. This this isn't exactly like Plato. Plato talks about, the this world of uh,
Forms.
perfect. Yeah, I forget the name he uses because it's a boring concept.
Like primordial forms that are,
Yeah,
you know, the triangle before it becomes a triangle, that kind of thing. Um,
I think that we turn things into symbols so that we can re-experience them,
work with them.
work with them. Yeah, because a chair. Yeah, Diva's like 3 hours ahead of us. So
Yeah. Some of you got to be getting sleepy.
yeah, for 3 hours behind us. I forget which way it goes.
Mm.
It's 3 hours later where she is. So anyway, that's tonight's story. And the way you remember it is you think of the Taoist priests and the dervishes competing to see who can do the best image or understanding of the divine reality.
Before we close, did you want to share something?
Yes, I just wanted to say something about the first command that comes in or the first word that comes to us via Jibrail, which is Ikra, read. What are
Yes.
we reading? What are we supposed to be reading? We're reading the symbols. So in fact, everything is a symbol and we make symbols. So we read them to come back and wake up from sleep state and get out of the childhood state of pure breath into conscious breath, a journey of coming into the world as a baby, pure breath, having the journey to turning that pure breath into a pure conscious breath before returning back to where we came from.
Yeah.
And in between it all, lots of symbols to be read, to be made, to be had, and all of that. But I came across this beautiful little poem. I actually, while fidgeting, my little Rumi book fell down and it opened up to this page, which I'd like to share.
Yeah, please.
Only the oneness of love. Yeah. Only the oneness of love and the lover is eternal. Surrender your heart into this union, for all else in this world is momentary. I think
Yeah.
that sums up a lot of the things we spoke of tonight.
Yep. And just as an aside, what you said explains why Quran had to be delivered in Arabic, that no other language could do, because the essence of Arabic is the transformation of symbols, where
Wow, I
every
didn't know
word
that.
has a root symbol and all the other meanings, all the variations of that symbol emerge from that.
Mm.
And so that's hidden within the text, even from Arab speakers sometimes.
I think that's a lovely note to close on.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just going to say it's a fascinating commentary on the part of Gurdjieff's introduction to Beelzebub, where he discusses which language to use. Doesn't even consider Arabic.
Mm.
That's because he didn't speak Arabic.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for all the
Let me
brain
switch
sweat,
this over
heart
to,
sweat. Yeah, Brady
there we
Bunch.
go.
People are
There we
having
have it.
interesting chats in the comments. Feel free to take this off Zoom as well, maybe into the Facebook forum or private chats, but I hope that you guys keep up the good
Yeah.
conversations.
And I'll see if I can cobble my notes together into something coherent and then post it on the forum for us.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for your contributions and for hanging in there with all these fancy terms and big ideas that hopefully we can all find some meaning in, because they also serve as symbols. All right. Brady Bunch mode.
We are in Grady
Each
Bunch
other.
mode. Take
Thanks
care,
everyone
folks. Thank you
watching.
so much.
Have a good week, and
And we will,
we will be around next week.
yeah.
Bye.